Do you know this thing that like I'm just thinking about back in Nigeria, right? When two people are fighting and someone like a lot of people have tried to sort of separate them and they just keep fighting and fighting, and it gets to the point where people just ignore them and they just start the fight to the point where they can't even throw like punches anymore.
So this is one Sunday after the Ukraine-Russia negotiation started in Saudi Arabia. We did promise that we were going to come with updates, and there's a minor update. Nothing much has changed, to be honest. I think this update is coming from the 25th, which is, I think, Wednesday. Yeah, I think this update is literally coming from Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, there wasn't much that changed. And the update is that, and I'm curious to see what you think about this, Ibra. So they're negotiating a peace deal, right? And what they have managed to reach at this point is a potential ceasefire in the Black Sea. Why is the Black Sea important, right? It's important because it's a trade route, and this war has destabilized this trade route. So in negotiating peace for the people of Ukraine, in negotiating the safety of the people of Ukraine, somehow the bit that has come up as the first thing to knock out of the water is securing trade routes. Yeah, so basically, it's not finalized yet, but somehow the BBC at least reported that Ukraine, Russia, they have somewhat agreed to a ceasefire in the Black Sea for some days to allow trade to be able to take place. I don't know. For me, it seems very interesting. What are your thoughts?
I would probably think they are both getting tired in a way of this whole thing, because this is like a sign that it has really impacted like these two countries, right? Like economically, right? So do you know this thing that like I'm just thinking about back in Nigeria, right? When two people are fighting and someone like a lot of people have tried to sort of separate them and they just keep fighting and fighting, and it gets to the point where people just ignore them and they just start the fight to the point where they can't even throw like punches anymore. I feel like we are probably looking at something similar, like probably not with Russia, but I feel like they probably are both getting tired of this, but at the end of the day, it will all be for nothing if both parties still didn't get sort of a win in the situation. So they are leaning towards, you know what, let's make it easier on each other and let's see how we can finally meet sometimes and get this over with. That's what I think.
That's interesting because I actually see it very differently. I think why it catches my attention is that somehow we've managed to put money, at the forefront of what needs to be settled first. Because, and I don't know if it's because the US is the mediator here, but somehow in the bid to broker peace, they're not going sweat and blood on how do we literally stop the war, how do we stop the fight in places that people are dying. Yeah, they're going for how do we secure trade routes. Now, this trade route is not necessarily trade from Russia to somewhere else or Ukraine to somewhere else, but just for trade to be able to happen between the West and the East. This is what makes the Black Sea important for them. But with regards to what you say, I'm not sure if that's what's happening, because the stance of Russia at the moment is actually quite strong. So the US is saying, let's move back to pre-war boundaries, and let's go back to what you demanded before. Say we go to pre-war boundaries, or at least we take only a small portion of Ukraine, and so basically Russia said, oh, we're going to take just this area of Ukraine. You have to sign another agreement that Ukraine will never be able to join the EU and NATO, and that agreement with Russia that they will restore certain things and all that stuff. But now Russia is saying, nope, that was then. Now geography has changed. We're not moving back into pre-war borders. They're demanding things that makes it seem like they don't want it to end. They're fine with where they are. At some point, they will get the whole of Ukraine or something like this. This is the kind of stance that Russia is taking. So Russia is now demanding that for even a ceasefire to happen, all trade embargoes on Russia by the West has to be lifted. Do you think this is possible? That kind of stance, what does that tell you? All trade embargo has to be lifted. They have to guarantee that Ukraine will not join NATO. They're not going to move back to pre-war borders, and they will immediately reinstate Russia back on the SWIFT network.
Yeah, that's insane.
So for me, I don't feel like
Yeah.
that's the sign
That
of someone
doesn't-
that
yeah.
is tired of fighting. It's almost the sign of someone that feels like, look, I'm at a good position. I feel like I can win this. And if you really want to stop this war, you will have to concede a lot. But clearly, Ukraine and the Western partners, I think it's too much to concede. Now, you can argue that, well, if you're negotiating, you have to start here, and then you start giving concessions, so that you at least end here and not here. You can argue that maybe this is what Russia is doing, but we never know. They could also be, we're starting here. If you delay longer, we go here.
For sure, I don't think Russia doesn't have the capacity to continue like this war. I mean, if they want to, it's like, okay, we just feel like we want to, like Russia is a strong military country. So yeah, I mean, it could be that they are just trying to demand everything that they feel like they can get, but with asking if that's realistic, I don't think those times are actually realistic. So yeah, we'll see how it comes out, because they are not getting the embargo thing off. Yeah,
it just feels like they're asking too much. It doesn't feel like they're really willing to stop this war. And that's that. So for me, when you get that kind of information, I don't know if it's the right negotiation strategy. I'll have to really think about it a little bit more to then say, okay, let's park that aside. Let's talk about something that maybe we know that you both can actually concede on. So a ceasefire on the Black Sea, so trade can continue with nations that actually need the Black Sea for trade.
Yeah.
And for me, it's more, I can either say, well, that's a good sign because you would like to at least record a win, right, or record some sort of progress in the negotiation. But also it could be, again, this point of what is actually the true incentive of the US in trying to mediate here. Is it really for the people of Ukraine? Or is it just so that their economy can tap into another big economy?
I mean, that has always been clear, right? I don't think US is in this to sort of end the war and be like the mediator, or like the good guy, or the savior, or whatever, or the big bro. It's all about what they can get. I mean, remember how the meeting with Zelensky went in the White House, where Trump was going and JD Vance was there. They were both going for the president. Like, they're not in a good position. If the war ending was the priority, I don't think all these other demands from the US would even be as important to them as it is, So it's all about the money.